My name's Elise. I'm 38. I came back to my dad's house because I didn't have anywhere else to go. If you've ever had to start over under someone else's roof, or been made to feel like a burden when you were just trying to survive, hit like, subscribe, and drop your name and city in the comments for a shout out in the next story. Today's shout out goes to Carmen from Raleigh, who said last week's story helped her walk away from years of silence. When my marriage ended last spring, I thought I could handle it, just keep working, stay focused, and move on. Then the layoffs hit. One bad month turned into 3, then 6. The rent dried up, and the silence from job applications felt louder than any argument I'd had with my ex. I called my dad late one night, told him I needed a place to stay, just until things leveled out. He didn't say much. Just, all right, followed by a pause and, don't make it permanent. So I packed what I could fit in the back seat and drove the 4 hours home. It wasn't easy being back. His house was quiet in that stiff, uncomfortable way, like you had to apologize for breathing too loudly. He kept his routines: coffee at 6, news by 7, golf on Sundays, opinions sharp as ever. We never talked much before, and living with him didn't change that. He didn't ask how I was doing. He just nodded when I passed through the kitchen and left notes when something needed doing. Still, I tried. I made dinner a few nights a week. Cleaned up. Kept my things neat. I stayed out of his way. Christmas was the first time the whole family came over since I moved back. My brother Matt brought his girlfriend. Dad set the table like it was some big production: cloth napkins, his old silverware, even the serving platters that only came out on holidays. It felt like he was trying to impress someone, though I couldn't tell who. Dinner started fine. Quiet, but decent. Diane, my stepmother, asked me a few kind questions, but I could see her glancing at Dad every time she spoke. Like she was checking in before she said too much. We were halfway through dessert when he put his fork down. I think it's time we talk about the elephant in the room, he said. Everyone looked up. Elise, you've been here 3 months. No job, no plan. You're not contributing. This isn't sustainable. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. I knew that tone, flat, controlled. The kind he used when he was done pretending to be patient. I'm not running a charity, he added. It's time you find somewhere else to stay. The air in the room thinned. No one moved. Diane looked at her plate. Matt blinked like he wasn't sure he heard it right. I just stood up. Quietly. I wasn't going to ask for another chance, not at that table. I'll get my things, I said. Nobody stopped me. I didn't pack much that night, just the essentials. Laptop, a few changes of clothes, a worn notebook where I'd scribbled half-finished ideas for jobs, projects, even escape routes. I moved quietly, not out of fear, just habit. Growing up in that house taught me that the quieter you are, the less space you take up, the longer you're tolerated. It was after 10 p.m. when I slid the front door shut behind me. No one said goodbye. Diane lingered in the kitchen, but didn't meet my eyes. Matt texted me a half-hearted, "Sorry about that. Call me later." I didn't answer. The night was cold and sharp, the kind that wakes you up fast. I sat in my car for a moment with my hands on the steering wheel, not crying, not thinking much at all. Just waiting for the next step to appear. There wasn't one. I didn't have a friend's couch lined up. I'd burned through most of my savings. The few job leads I had were already cold. The closest thing I had to a plan was a 24-hour diner off the highway where I could sit for a while and figure out where to sleep. I ended up there, nursing a bad cup of coffee and picking at fries. It was mostly truckers and shift workers. The kind of people who didn't ask questions. I was grateful for that. I booked a cheap motel room online from my phone. One of those places where the bedspreads feel like cardboard and the shower takes 10 minutes to warm up. But it had a door I could lock, and for that night, that was enough. Lying in bed with the heater clicking and humming, I kept replaying his words. "You're not contributing." That was the measure of worth in my father's world. If you weren't earning, you weren't anything. But somewhere in the quiet of that motel room, something else started to take shape, a thought I hadn't let myself say out loud yet. I was still here. Still standing. Still capable of building something, even if I didn't know what it looked like yet. Maybe I couldn't control how I left that house, but I could damn well choose where I landed next. I spent the next 2 days in that motel room doing what I hadn't been able to do for months: sleep without tension in my chest. It wasn't peaceful sleep. More like drifting in and out with questions hanging above me like ceiling tiles. Where do I go now? How do I start over again at this age? What if I've run out of chances? I still had no job, no home, no safety net. Just a few $100s left in my account and a stack of resumes that hadn't moved the needle. And yet, and this surprised me, I didn't feel like I was collapsing. I wasn't panicking. Just sitting in the discomfort, feeling all of it. That morning, I took a long shower and made a list on hotel stationery. I titled it, Things I Can Still Do. It wasn't long, but it was honest. I can write. I can organize chaos. I can listen. I can learn. I can start again. I stared at that last one a while. Start again. It sounded heavy, but it also felt like the only way forward. I got dressed, drove to the library, and used one of their public computers. Applied for 3 admin jobs and 1 customer support gig I was overqualified for but desperate enough to try. Then I saw it, a flyer on the bulletin board for a women's community support group at the church next door. Weekly meetings. No religious pressure. Just space to breathe and talk. That evening I went. 6 women sat in folding chairs in a small, warm room. Coffee in a pot, cookies on a napkin-covered plate. No one asked for my life story. No one offered solutions. They just let me sit, and when it felt right, I spoke. I left my dad's house 2 nights ago. He told me I was a leech. On Christmas. No one flinched. A woman in her 50s put a hand on my arm. Said, "That's not who you are." That's just what he said to keep himself powerful. Something about that landed hard. Because I knew she was right. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel ashamed of being where I was. I felt clear. Tired, but clearer than I'd been in a long time. I drove back to the motel and emailed the woman who ran the group. I asked if they needed volunteers. I started volunteering at the church office 3 mornings a week. Nothing glamorous: sorting mail, updating spreadsheets, wiping down folding tables. But it gave my days structure, and that alone was a gift. Marcia, the woman who ran the women's group, had a kind face and an exacting memory. She never forgot birthdays, allergies, or the small wins people mumbled on their way out of meetings. One morning, she asked what I used to do. Marketing. Mostly copywriting. Some digital work. Presentations, branding, client accounts. She raised an eyebrow. You ever help nonprofits? I told her I hadn't, but I could. By that afternoon, I was rebuilding their newsletter, tightening their donation landing page, and suggesting a few layout changes to the community calendar. You've got a head on you, she said. You don't move like someone who's lost everything. I think I just got tired of sinking. That weekend, I got a call from one of the women in the group, Angela. Her cousin owned a small events firm downtown and needed help managing bookings and client correspondence. Nothing long-term, she warned. But it's something. I interviewed that Monday. The office was small but clean. The woman who ran it, Jenny, reminded me of the kind of boss I used to be: sharp, warm, overworked. We clicked. She offered me a 3-month contract on the spot. I accepted. That night, I left the motel and moved into a small studio apartment above a closed-down bakery. The wallpaper was peeling in one corner, and the shower made a high-pitched whistle, but it had a lock, a window, and a space I could call mine. The first night there, I cooked scrambled eggs on a borrowed hot plate, folded my clothes into drawers that hadn't been opened in years, and slept with the window cracked just enough to hear the city's soft hum. No one knew where I was. My father hadn't called. Diane hadn't messaged. Matt hadn't followed up. But the silence didn't sting like it used to. I'd stopped waiting for them to recognize my worth. I'd started showing it to myself instead. 3 months into the contract, Jenny asked if I'd consider coming on full-time. I said yes without hesitation. I'd rebuilt a steady rhythm. It wasn't glamorous, Bills still made me nervous, and I budgeted like I was balancing glass, but I no longer woke up wondering what the day would take from me. I had clients to manage, projects to shape, and a team that saw me as valuable, not expendable. One Saturday morning, I sat at the little desk by my window and wrote a letter to my father. I didn't plan to send it. I just needed to write it. Dad, you didn't break me. I don't know if that was your intention, or just the way you move through life, cutting things off when they stop being convenient. Either way, you should know I left your house with nothing, but I built something better. You said I was a leech. You meant it as an insult, but I heard it as a boundary. I took the hint and the exit. I hope you understand that not every person in need is weak, and not every provider is strong. I forgive you. But I don't need to come back. I folded it, tucked it into a drawer, and felt lighter for it. Weeks later, I ran into Matt outside a cafe. He looked uncomfortable. Said Diane told him I was doing okay, but they didn't have many details. You should call Dad, he said. No, I replied. But you can tell him I'm well. He nodded slowly. You look it. I left it there. No bitterness. No lecture. Just space. That's the thing I'd learned. Closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's a quiet, personal understanding that you're done chasing what won't meet you halfway. I still go to the women's group. I help new volunteers feel less invisible. Every once in a while, someone says, "You're really good at holding people together." I smile. Because I had to learn how to hold myself first. If you've ever had to walk away to protect your peace, hit like, comment your name and city for a shout out in the next one, and subscribe for more grounded stories like this. Thanks for being here. Your strength doesn't need permission.